This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
You find it still
Views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we're the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because right now, Joanne's World of Nutrition is coming your way thanks to Nutrition World in downtown Fort Pierce, hosted by Joanne Seeger.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's having an incredible morning. I know for us locals, we're enjoying this cooler morning. You know, that's when we have our little sweatshirts on, and then 1 hour later, it's back to the bathing suit.
Yep.
It's like 65 to 85 in a snap. But I do love it. It's nice just to have that little breath of fresh air, to walk the dogs without sweating so bad in the humidity. And it is that Wednesday of the month where I have my favorite guest, Burt Goulding, on the line with us. Well, the Zoom with us. Good morning, Burt. How are you?
Good morning. It's nice to have cooler weather here too. It's been
What is it there in California?
right now it's like 54 degrees.
Ah, beautiful. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yep, I love it. And again, I always appreciate you getting up nice and early, but I have a suspicion that you always get up early, whether it's to be on this show or not. Am I correct in that, Bert?
Yes, but the toughest time is right after the crazy time change thing with the clocks. It always messes me up because I think, the brain kind of locks in as to when dawn is and when it's sunset, and now it's all.
Well,
So
I
for-
definitely
for-
like this time better than the during the spring, because
yes.
the spring really messes me up. Well, my 13-year-old daughter finally was ready to learn about the time change, and so I was trying to explain it to her, and it was like, I mean, this moment was hysterical. She's like, "No, Mom, I don't get it," and I'm like, honey, I'm really trying here, but I don't understand how you don't get it, and I'm like, normally it would be dark right now. Like, I'm trying to explain the whole thing, and she really didn't get it, and, she's a bright young lady, straight A's and all that. So I said, you know what? It's okay. You have a little more time. So you're okay. But I didn't give up. I'm just going to revisit the conversation in a little bit. So, Bert, a lot of crazy information's in my mind right now, and I love that you're so flexible and casual. Like, for all our listeners, Bert and I never discuss what's going to be on the show for the most part. I might throw him a text on the drive here and be like, "Hey, Bert, how about this?" So it's not rehearsed. There's no notes. Because Bert is that smart, okay? He's that smart. So you are, and we can just really get some question and answer going, right? Sound good?
Oh yeah, yeah. And
All right.
the reason
Awesome.
it works is that I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
I know, and I do love that about you, because no one knows everything, right? Or not even close. This universe is just bringing us so much information every moment. But I have tried through the Wellness Center and working with my clients to have harder conversations. And I am finding myself saying more often than not, I don't understand how it works, but I still don't understand how my cell phone works, but I'm still using it in my life, my family's life, my customers' lives, and it is making a difference. So if you can just kind of step into that arena where you just trust, like with frequencies and healing and, so many of the devices that we're using, red light therapy, all these things that we're using, it's really hard for my mind to really comprehend all the big language that goes behind it. And I'm like, I'm not a quantum physicist. I don't really get it, but I know it works. So that's where I'm trying to stay positive, hopeful that my mind soon will start making this information make sense to me. So I have some questions, and I am also extremely curious, Bert. when you went from being a clinical nutritionist in California and you discovered supplements that you would like to make a business out of, how did you go from like holding a supplement bottle to all of a sudden talking about the word energy and energy potential and what that supplement could create or is in itself? Could you start there with me, and then my brain will just kind of absorb in your information?
Well, personally, I went out to visit a independent health food store about maybe an hour away from where our company is. And we're already doing things with good supplements, but we had no idea. But I was tested on a machine that they were able to go through and look at every meridian, which ties into organs, right? So on an acupuncture, acupressure type thing, and didn't have any questions asked of me. The person that was running this was very experienced. And as I went to say, well, this is what I'm concerned about, he goes, no, we'll talk about that later. So we went through, and just with this machine, it was able to read what was going on in my body to such a point that nobody on earth, not even my wife, would know these things going on in my body. And it was just so accurate. So from there, I thought, oh, I've got to get one of these machines. And it turns out that I went and got one that was even more
Powerful.
yeah, more powerful and easier to do, and went and got training. And my wife came with me. We got trained on the biomeridian machine, and then came back and started doing that, and eventually bought a second one. And I had an assistant, and we had just people lined up and scheduled, 8 or 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. It just went on for months and months until we almost burned ourselves out, but exhaustion wise, trying to help people. But what was interesting as far as energy is that when we would go ahead and put supplements on the test plate, it would show whether it was balancing to that person's body or not balancing. Now, that means that the ideal on a scale of 1 to 100 was 50. You were always trying to shoot for 50. And if you had to choose between 51 and 49, you'd go with the 51. But you'd put individual supplements on there. We would test them and find out what it was to help that individual. And then that was kind of the beginning of discovery, because we discovered things that were way beyond what I had learned in all my college courses. And it's one thing to read about what somebody else thinks, it's another to actually see it. And we started to see some patterns. Okay, so that was the very beginning of it. But then I have a really good friend who had owned a health food store, and he retired. He's in his 70s, but he became certified as an iridologist. So he was basically being able to use a computer program to photograph a person's iris there in the eye and go through that whole thing. And he started getting into energy testing, and I always did everything double blind, so that a person had no idea what they were testing. And sometimes I put it in there 2 or 3 times to see if it was always coming out the same. And it did. And once we started seeing that, that the quantity of energy that a person could put into their body had the biggest overall positive effect of anything, so it's a process. It went on for probably 5 or 6 years. It's still going on, 20 something years later. It's about 20 years since I got tested on that first machine, but it just makes all the difference in the world. And now we can actually fine tune the formulas as to what's in each capsule. A person would say, if you put in a dried cranberry juice into this formula, it'll actually increase it by 5% over the energy that it has now. And if you take this ingredient out, it makes it go even higher. So to be able to fine tune a formula based on the energy it provides the human body, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm not going to say that we won't learn more, because it's been a journey, but
Right. And I love that, and I appreciate that. And I do work with those type of machines with my clients, and our functional medicine doctor that partners with us, he uses them as well. They're an amazing tool that I understand maybe 20% of it, and every day I try to learn more. But it's incredible how it sees things that sometimes you're not even aware of, you know? And I love that, like you had that experience where they sit down and oh, don't worry about telling me anything. Just, you know, let's just use the machine, right? And when I work with the clients and they really are ready to just explode with information, like, you know, all the things that are breaking and going wrong. And I'm like, well, why don't you sit, take a few deep breaths and just come right over here. And it's amazing how it picks up because, again, like you said, you want to show them that it works and I'm not just secretly and putting something on the side of all the things they're mentioning. So it is incredible, incredible. So so back to the energy potential. So you mentioned with positive power nutrition, your super silica, your cell power, your vitamin C, all these incredible products, which I've used for years now, and I absolutely love you and the products. How do you test their energy? Like, do you take the material out of the packaging that you sell and you put it in a glass? Like, how does it work?
No, you can test it even when it's in a bottle. You know, the super circulation, you would just leave it in the bottle and you would go
That's
ahead.
crazy, Bert, because I want to talk about that one after this discussion. So good timing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's left in the bottle, and that's why when I would set up to do a lot of my testing in independent health food store, and people would, you know, just come in back to back to back, we had available thousands of products on the shelves. So somebody could say, oh, well, what about this? And they'd bring it over. Now, typically they would start out by bringing in their cardboard box of all their supplements from home. But we could also test their shampoos and their soaps and even their prescription medications. I had to tell them I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not telling you, you know, don't take a medication or whatever, but let's find out which ones are least disrupting to your body versus those that are most disrupting. And if they found one that really messed up their body, you could tell by putting the test plate, and it was all hooked in to the meridians, and it's a robotic device so that if I tested the person and then 5 minutes later you test them, it all come out to the same. So it's not like a lot of machines where it you know, has to do with a person putting more pressure or less pressure. So we try to make sure it was just as neutral as possible. But with the medications, we'd say, well, you just need to go back to your doctor and say, well, is there a generic you can put me on? Or is there another way to go with this? But it had to do just about anything. So we had people, I remember I would have men that would bring in their unopened cans of beer and say, you know, I want you to test this. And then I want you to tell my wife, who's right outside the test room here, that this is okay for me. And I said, well, I'm only going to tell her what your body says, because it's not what the machine is saying. The machine is just reading the impulses from your own body. So you may think, oh, no, I really like this thing. And your body's gone, no, we don't. You know, all the cells are basically reporting back, and it shows up on the screen. We'd print out the report. So, I mean, that's what we would do is find out what helped. And sometimes, you know, the store owner would say, well, when you just tested cell power super silica on this person, it didn't end up a perfect 50, you know, and we would go ahead and do combinations and put it together. And I said, they may not be ready for it. Let's give the body what it's asking for today, you know, at the dosage and duration. And then in 5 weeks, when they come back for their follow-up appointment, and a lot of people come back every 5 weeks throughout a whole year, but when they come back, we'll find out if they're ready for that. And maybe after 3 months, that person, their body was saying, okay, now I want the cell power and the super silica, you know, I need it right now. So again, it's this idea that you need to have what your body needs now. I mean, a lot of people, when they go to eat different foods, they're trying to be in tune with their body, and they're listening to the fact that, oh, I know on the menu for family dinner, we had spaghetti, but you know, right now, this afternoon, my body's saying, no, I think we ought to go with chicken salad or whatever it is. Right. And if you listen to your body and give it what it wants, I mean, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that says if your son asks for a loaf of bread, will you give him a stone? Or if you ask for a fish, will you give them a electric eel, a serpent?
Right.
You know, it's that same kind of a thing as when our body is asking for something right now, it's to accomplish the work and the purposes that it has to accomplish.
Absolutely, Bert, and I definitely believe that 100% because I notice with children, they will go to what their body is telling them if we don't get in the way. I used this example yesterday that one of my stepdaughter, Scarlett, I hate saying the word step. That's why I stumbled a little bit there. My daughter, Scarlett, she is extremely healthy, really just amazing energy and just really sharp. She always stays away from refined carbohydrates in the morning. Like she literally has a disdain for them. Like she wouldn't even like, oh, I need to have eggs or, I need to have some protein. And I notice as they get older, if we don't get in the way, their body still will lead them intuitively to the right choices, but sometimes, as the parents are bringing Eggos and Pop Tarts and toaster strudels to, okay, just use this because we're rushing to school and just, throw that in your mouth. They get that pattern and then they wonder where the ADD, ADHD, brain fog, stomach aches, and sleep issues start occurring from, right? But as a busy mom, I do get that whole story too. But yes, to kind of be mindful, quiet the mind, lead by what your body is telling you. God did bless us with beautiful intuition if we don't cover it all up, right? So
Yeah.
love that. Bert, the idea you keep mentioning being involved with the health food stores, did you kind of use them as a good audience with your practice because you felt that they were already open-minded enough about like energy, meridians, chakras, all these things that even in Christianity, sometimes people kind of act like it's taboo. Like I found it very difficult bringing up even the word energy for a long time because I thought like my Christian friends would think like I was practicing witchcraft in the corner. Can I have your thoughts on that whole like transition from, you know, some just saying the word God or energy and just putting it all together?
Well, I think that that's the most exciting part of my job is that I get to talk about God and energy, both of those every single day. I mean, when people call into our company and ask questions, a lot of times they're saying, well, should I do this or should I do that? Thinking, I'm some kind of a doctor the other side of the country that's going to be able to help them. And I said, I'm not a doctor. And I said, if you were here in the area and I hooked you up to the machines, then it would be reading your own body. But then again, I'm not prescribing or telling you what to do. I'm just saying your body wants this. Now, are you going to give it what it wants? But as I would talk about that, one of the most exciting things is I would be set up in a health food store doing the biomeridian testing, trying to help people come up with exactly what they should be taking supplement wise and water and everything else. A lot of people say, well, I don't think I need to drink a gallon of distilled water every day. I said, well, let's find out and put on the machine. So we'd go ahead and put a glass of distilled water on the machine. It's all hooked up to the meridians and we would let their cells say how much it is. And sometimes they said, well, you're right. This is saying only 3.5 quarts instead of 4. Okay, so let's write that down. But they got to see exactly what it was. That if we were trying to put it more or trying to put less, and then it's up to them to either do it or not. But one of the most exciting things is that I was doing one in a retirement community, an all-day thing, and I would do that probably once a week. I would bring all my equipment out there and set up, and that was the part I hated the most, was trying to set up an entire room for testing and then have to take it all back down and then take it back. But I was there and somebody came in and they heard the machine going because it had a very distinctive sound as it would be testing people. And they just said, what are you doing here? So I was busy testing someone. So the store owner was trying to explain, well, this is what we're doing. And they said, well, I just was driving down the highway right here. And I just had this really strong impression that said, you need to pull into this parking lot. So I pulled in the parking lot. It was like, oh, you need to go over to that store. So I'm here, and you go, I don't even know what your store does. I just feel like I need to be there. And a lot of times people would say they would be praying for days or for weeks as to, I can't figure out what's going on with my body. And they would be led to come over to where we were just because their body wanted to tell them, but it needed a machine to interpret it. Now, some people, and it sounds like your daughter Scarlett maybe just is so in tune with her body that she's already able to know, but some people just kind of shut down their feelings. I have really good friends, but this is more common with men than it is with women, is they just totally shut down their feelings. And so I'll say, well, how did you feel after you took this supplement? And they would say, well, I didn't feel anything at all. It'd always be fun if the wife is there, because she goes, wait a minute, you've been telling me every day for the last 3 weeks that this is the best you've ever felt. What do you mean you didn't feel anything at all? And it's like, oh, did I say that? And it's like, I don't know what kind of world that we men get into with our brains, where all of a sudden we're blocking out things and somebody will remind us, oh no, actually, this is the healthiest that you've been. You've been getting up earlier on your own and you're happy and all this. And so, it's again, our body's trying to tell us things, and sometimes we're just ignoring it or shutting it down. And that's really what energy is all about, is that if there's a good energy flow in the body, then everything works. And whenever you have things that are shut down, it's really sad for women that have had C-section surgery. A lot of times it's horizontal, kind of like from hip bone to hip bone is when they do the cut. It's not vertical, and it'll go right through the conception vessel, which is a meridian, so named, going down the front of the body. But once you've cut into that, the body will try to build a new path that goes around that cut. And I'm not saying it has to be a C-section cut, any kind of a cut on the front, but you can see what it is, and it's trying to work on it. And all we're trying to do is help people have the right things in their life. And a lot of times that has to do with supplements, to have what they need so the body can fix whatever damage or, whatever roadblock.
Burt, we are so in sync. It's crazy. So not only did I have the C-section cut, but I also had some emergencies with miscarriages, where I had to have 5 cuts in the same area over and over again within a couple of years. So this morning, so in my machine, it does come up that meridian is blocked a lot. Okay. So I did one exercise that one of the beautiful minds that I listened to mentioned, and doing mirror work, but I did it specifically on loving that part of myself. And really, when I looked at it this morning, instead of the old mind that was like, oh, scar tissues, adhesions, blockages, I looked and I was like, I love you, I'm gonna, massage you, this, and literally I felt like this gratitude and this whole lightness versus what I was feeling before. So it's crazy that you're bringing this up, because it just really, with scar tissue and adhesion, there is that blockage that, it's like, I call it like a wall, like, so do you have any suggestions for, like, even just, we'll use myself as an example. I'm trying to really do everything energetically to stop any blockages. What would you usually suggest for someone with my situation?
Well, it depends. If a lot of the walls or the blockages are near the surface of the skin, then a lot of times we would have a person do the Cell Power topical spray, or they used to do the Cell Power dietary drops back when the government didn't give you a hard time for doing that. But it was but a lot of times, if it's deeper in the body and if it's not very close to the surface of the skin, I'm telling them infrared sauna. But you need to do that correctly. I would go visit. I mean, I visited hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of independent health food stores all over the country. And sometimes I would spend, I'd visit them 5 times in 5 years. And a lot of them would have an infrared sauna where you could sign up for a, all you can eat type thing, all of the sessions you want for one flat fee for a month. But you have to understand how powerful it is, and that you really should only be doing the infrared sauna every other day at the most. 2 days in a row is more than the body can handle. What we found is that if it's really good and is really powerful, you still need to not overload the body. A lot of people say, well, is too much of a good thing bad? And I said, yeah, it can be. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is bad. It just means that you have to have a little rest in between. And that's when the body will apply all of that good stuff that you're getting from the infrared sauna or from the red light therapy or whatever it is. You need to have, and there are some things that you don't need to rest one day in between, but very few. I mean, when I would go to these health food stores, for all the ones that didn't have a foot bath machine, we owned 3 or 4, and we would bring them in, and I'd bring in assistants, and we would set it up, and people make appointments, and come in, and we would just have that in their store. If they decided they wanted to do it by themselves, great. Now I can spend time at other stores, and they would bring in the equipment, they get it all set up, and they would help people. We had to learn a lot.
And I have the infrared sauna. I am blessed with one is at home as well, and I did go in this morning, but I do remember you saying that many shows back. So I only usually go 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm using PEMF as well as the Iron Foot Detox. Do you suggest I don't want to, I know you just mentioned until the government got involved, but so I have, right? So I don't have the cell power at home. So may I apply it directly? So I don't know. I don't know what you can say right now. So
well, I can just tell you that historically, and that's why I tell people, ask me a question. I say, well, I can't talk about it in the present tense, but historically, what people did for 68 years.
Okay, love it.
They would do, the following. If it was, if there was, but now I can talk more freely when it comes to the natural cosmetic line, the Cell Power topical spray, the Super Silica topical spray. Those are properly diluted. In a lot of ways, they're more effective than when a person used to use a drop of the concentrate that they were going to put in their drinking water, and they put that on their skin. So that the way that it's diluted with purified drinking water, I mean, we're talking more pure than anybody puts in any cosmetic. We have only 1 part per million total dissolved solid in any water that we use that goes into these sprays. And then we only use distilled water in the eye energy because of the fact that people are putting that on the skin all around the eyes, all of the bones of the eye socket that act as a battery, and it holds electricity. So you're charging up that battery, and then it gives extra electricity to the eyeball, to the optic nerve as needed. But because that is okay to get in your eye, we only use distilled water. It's not even purified. It's 0 parts per million. So the purity of the water makes a huge difference in energy. It makes a huge difference in what works for a person. And I think I've gotten so far away from what your question is.
But actually,
maybe you should ask that question again.
But you really did good, because if someone is in the sauna, they are so when you say you have the Cell Power, like I have the Super Silica spray that I always use right after I turn off my water in the shower. So as my body still is soaking wet, I spray the Super Silica on there, because you have mentioned in previous shows that the Super Silica and the Cell Power Beauty Aid products, the external, work great with moisture, right?
Mhm.
Just like you always say with your Super Silica drops and your Cell Power, you're adding them into a glass of water. So you weren't off topic. So if you're in the sauna, you're saying that if you just take the Cell Power spray versus before, when people were using the Cell Power drops directly on the issue, it's still as effective because you're using the distilled water, the special purified water that makes
Yeah.
it more energetic.
It really is. And in some ways, it's almost like with homeopathy that less is more. Is that, I mean, it's properly diluted already. It's not that some people don't still use the drops, because once they buy it, they can do whatever they want with it. But what we found is that the cell power is wonderful for anything that is raised on the skin. If you're going to be doing the cell power topical spray, that's excellent for, and all we can talk about, we can't say that it's like medicated or doing anything changing your body at all. But what we can say under a cosmetic law is that it is improving the appearance. So I always tell people, if you have warts or moles or skin tags or cold sores or fever blisters or acne or eczema or psoriasis, and you want to improve the appearance, you know, everybody say they're beauty products. Okay, they really are, because as you apply it, it's going to really, really improve the appearance until you don't see those things at all. I've done it myself with a skin tag under my left arm was the first one, and I would photograph it every day because I wanted to see what the changes were rather than just at the end not know what had happened. And it took 9 days for the electricity that was being added to that spot where the skin tag was to completely change the skin tag so that it became like a scab, and then it just fell off when I was rubbing it on the 9th day. It just came off as a whole skin tag. But people have done it with moles, all kinds of moles, you know, scar tissue. I mean, we're talking about, doesn't matter whether you have a scar from last week or you've had this scar for 30 years. If it's raised, what that means is that that part of your body ran out of electricity, and the body could have diverted electricity, say, from a vital organ over to the scar. But guess what? As long as it's closed up, right, and it's not an open wound, the body's like, no, I have more important things to use my electricity on. So it doesn't spend the electricity on that scar. Once you put the cell power on there on a regular basis, and the same thing happens with infrared. If a person does infrared sauna, say 3 times a week, every other day, within 8 weeks, the scar will be completely gone, because it uses the electricity from the infrared or from the cell power spray to give electricity directly to that area, and it finishes the healing. If you have a scar, it means that the healing is maybe 80 or 90% done, and then you ran out of money, so to speak. And so it's just going to sit there until finally you can pay some attention to that area.
I love that analogy. So this is going to come across as a joke, but it's absolutely not. So I feel like I have to take a bath in the cell power, because I had, when I was a little girl, and I don't know if I told you this story, but when I was about 3 years old, I got burned down to the bone on my backside. So I was in the hospital for months, and scars, a lot of scarring, and as well as the 5 abdominal ones I just told you about. So should I take a bath in it? And I'm absolutely being realistic here. Like, should I, before I do the infrared sauna, like, should I really be, because I have it all in the front and I have my backside from my childhood scars. So do you think that if I immerse myself in a bath of it before I do my infrared sauna?
People have done that. They, sometimes they'll ask the question and I don't say anything, and then they go, I think I'm going to do that. They just decide on their own, which is what they need to do. And they've done that, and it's been really helpful. I had cell power adding electricity to the skin and to the body is so powerful that for someone that has toenail fungus or fingernail fungus, it just, that extra amount of electricity in that area just helps the body shut down that fungus, and it just totally clears up. But I had one person that had bought a whole bunch and diluted and put it in like a foot bath tray and just soaked both of his feet in the cell power, because he had picked up toenail fungus as a soldier in Vietnam. And so he'd been suffering with it for over 40 years. And we tried putting, he tried putting drops on it. We tried the spray, we tried everything. And for everybody else, it worked. But for him, it just didn't. It was so embedded into his toes and his feet. So he did that. I've had a lot of people that have done this. You're asking, should? I mean, there's quantum lasers that will do. I mean, there's not just one thing that does it. I know in a lot of supplement companies, that's like heresy. It's like saying, no, my supplement is the only thing that can help you in this area. I don't believe that. I absolutely don't believe that. I just say, look, for people that are going into hyperbaric oxygen chambers with medical doctors, and they're having tremendous success with their health, right? And MDs can do that, and although they have to realize that a SWAT truck or a tank may show up at their door. I have a person here in Newport Beach, California, that literally happened. It
Oh
was
no.
it was a National Guard tank that came up and was trying to smash down his office and try to open up his safe because he had everything in a bank type vault. But he was helping people with this with the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and they would come in once a week to do that. And then he was a big fan of using the cell power, helping them by having them put in their drinking water, drinking that, 6 servings a day, which is the ideal amount for an adult. And it would keep the hyperbaric oxygen process going for the entire week until the next time they could do it. So his
There are
idea,
people here that are using those chambers, and so far no SWAT trucks, but I think it's like you said, you have to be very careful about the claims you make about the chambers. If you keep that really under the rug, then you can stay in business. But you're right, they should be showing up at the McDonald's CEOs with those tanks, right? Like,
no, it's. I mean, there is so much more poisoning in food that's happened started just a couple of months ago that people just don't realize. It's just like open season.
wait, what do you mean a couple months ago? What's happening that I don't know?
They're starting to put and I'm a big label reader. Sometimes my wife is not very excited that, like, I'm in a hurry, I just want to get in the store and get back out, and I'll stop and start reading the labels. Like, oh no, not only is this taking up time, but there's a good chance that we're never going to be eating that again in our family.
Right. And you're never buying it. I totally get it.
But she does the same thing when I'm not there. She'll be reading the thing. So what we've noticed is with a lot of different granolas or really healthy crackers, they have all these great ingredients, and they've started to sneak all these chemical poisons into it. And one of them is SAPP. It's sodium acid pyrophosphate.
Oh my gosh.
Is ending up in foods. It is such a dangerous chemical that I've heard more people complain about IBS over the past 6 months than at any time during my life. It's just everybody has IBS. Oh, you must
You're
have a colon problem. Oh, you must have a colon problem.
I have heard many cases as well.
Okay, and what I think is there's a link with this totally caustic chemical that they're putting in, and they say things like, well, you're limited to 1% of the food product can be this ingredient. But what the sodium acid pyrophosphate is used for in farming business, it's what they use to burn the feathers off of chickens when you're turning them into broiler chickens. And if you're dealing with hogs and you're going to be turning it into pork, to actually burn the hog skin off and all of the hog hair or fur and everything else. And what they're saying is that the only excuse that they're justifying for putting this into foods that we're eating and going through our digestive tract and perhaps causing the IBS, I mean, who knows, is they're saying, well, it will help improve the appearance of food that's getting older while it's still on the shelf and not sold.
Oh my God.
And so not only is it legal, but it's just showing up everywhere. And then when I made that connection to maybe it's connected to all of these colon problems and IBS and everything else, I'm thinking, well, yeah, it doesn't change. It just goes right through the whole digestive tract, which means your stomach lining is is in danger. The esophagus, the inside of the mouth, all of these things. So if you're not reading labels on the food, I've had some people say, I don't want to do that. Even some of my grown children that are adults will say, Dad, don't tell me what's in that because I don't want to know. Because,
yes.
Because then I'm going to have to go find something that isn't poisoned.
I've heard it many times.
To go into it. But there are a lot of times vitamins, minerals, tremendously powerful supplements that will help block that to some degree. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about, but that's not on your
Well,
schedule,
no, but
but we
Bert, I
really should
really
talk about.
appreciate this. Yeah, I do.
Oh,
So is it on the labels for sure though, or is
uh-huh.
it
Oh
being
yeah.
hidden?
Yeah, it's
So
on there.
SAPP.
Well, they don't even put it that way. It's all spelled out. Everywhere else, they're trying to abbreviate it because they don't want people to hear the pyrophosphate, the pyro meaning fire. And that's what they'll do is they use that in scalding operations to take the chicken feathers off. But I also think that a lot of people that have been coming in to health food stores and saying, you know, my hair is breaking off, it's falling out. No, it's not falling out, but it's breaking off. Everybody thinks it's falling out. And I've got this hair loss is that you have something that's in supermarket foods that is specifically for getting rid of the hair on the hog skin after they kill the hog and for getting rid of the feathers on chickens. So the fact that that would specifically go right for hair on the human body. Now, a lot of people say, oh, that's great. You know, I no longer have to shave. My legs are under my arms. I no longer, you know, it's like using the Nair product. I don't know if it's even still around, but
Oh my
the
God, I
one that
remember
was,
that. Yeah.
well, the one that was basically saying, yeah, we'll burn it off and destroy the follicles or whatever underneath the skin so that it won't even grow back. So, you know, some people do that to themselves on purpose, but right now there's just a lot going on at this moment. Everywhere. I mean, the whole internet is abuzz with the fact that the WHO, the World Health Organization, is kind of pushing furiously to say that we want to ban trans fat everywhere in the world, the whole globe, by the end of 2023. Sounds like a good goal. I mean, because so much of the pharmaceutical industry and the major medical industry is all saying, oh yes, get rid of trans fat. That's been our goal. We've been working on it for 10 years and it's still not wiped out and it still shows up in products. But it's interesting to say there used to be articles about avocados were just filled with trans fat. So that made me begin to wonder, is it really that bad? So now they've tried to put into the articles, oh no, it's only artificial trans fats, where you're bubbling hydrogen up through oil to turn it into partially hydrogenated. You know, that sounds like, yeah, okay, we probably shouldn't be doing that. That sounds good. But I always wonder, in my lifetime, if somebody comes out and say, oh, this is really dangerous, don't eat eggs anymore. I found out that it's probably the opposite. It's probably the most healthy thing that you can possibly have in your diet and in your body. And you're now being told how terrible it is. I mean, there's a whole campaign about how bad distilled water is. I mean, it's an organized campaign. There's another one about, oh, don't drink very much water, you know, because a lot of water. I mean, whenever that campaign goes on. So right now, I'm just watching this whole trans fat thing because they're trying to completely block it. And my question is, does trans fat protect you against mRNA type engineered viruses? You know, is that why you have to get rid of it by the end of 2023? Is because 2024, they've already talked about it's going to be a lot worse than anything was during the COVID years. You know, I don't know. And we usually don't talk about that kind of stuff, but I would just
No,
say,
Bert, I appreciate it. I'm totally open to it. Keep going. I love it.
I would just say, get a habit of reading labels. And then it's still your choice. If you go, yeah, I know this has, you know, for example, people would avoid MSG so much because it would show up as capital M, capital S, capital G. And then monosodium glutamate, nobody, you know, anybody that's even looking at the label at all will look at it and say, oh, never mind, I don't want this. So they start hiding. And I think we've talked about this before. One of the,
Yeast and
yeah,
yeast.
and especially yeast extract.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's like 60 different names. Yeah.
yeah. Yeast extract is the one they love to use the most, and every type of flavored potato chip.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, even vinegar and salt potato chips, every type of potato chip that will have yeast extract in it. But now it's showing up just everywhere. And what people don't realize is it allows you to use an inferior grade of ingredients because it confuses the taste buds. So it's not just a neurotoxin attacking the brain, which that's bad enough, but it confuses a person's taste buds to the point where you can have really, really old stuff that should have been thrown away or disposed of a year ago and still put it into food products and then cover the strange taste that you would get by adding in this yeast extract. So I'm just saying, look at labels, realize that you can do something. Don't get discouraged. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just everywhere. It's too hard now." I go, "Well, maybe you think it's too hard to stay alive. I don't. It.
Yep,
Sometimes I
rather be
sometimes I get
above ground. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes I'm getting close to feeling like, oh, it's just so much work, but it is a lot of work. I mean, it's just a different kind of work. And in the 1800s, you were trying to run away from the wolves before they ate you. Now we have a different kind of work that we need to do and then be cheerful about it. Say, hey, I'm eating the best I can. I'm enjoying my food. I love life. I'm taking supplements that make a difference, and I'm listening to my body, just listening to see. Anyway.
I love that about you, Bert, because not only every time I see you're positive and smiling, but that to me is definitely the takeaway, because if we do become filled with anger, fear, and worry, then they've already won. They've already won. So I always say, you get within, you just listen, your body will dictate, right? And all those things you're describing are products, not food either way. Right. And so if you really stay away from products in general and just stick to real food, maybe some less chemicals are involved. But there is a movie. Now, I am a movie nut. Okay. And I do have one rule. So we do work 6 days a week at the store and the wellness center. And on Sundays, I always say, okay, no nutrition, because I would like to feel a little more balanced in my life. Like I always make a joke. If you bring me to a party and you talk about so many other subjects, I'll just be a wallflower. But you bring up nutrition and that's it. I'm making a circle happen around me and I just won't shut up, right? But this movie was supposed to be about anything but work, and it was the House of Usher. All of a sudden, I realized that it was basically about the pharmaceutical industry and this whole negative spin on it, but done in this extremely creative way. And the main actor has this scene where he talks about lemons. And he said to the other person, "So you think lemons are good, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Let me tell you how that whole lemon conversation started. Monsanto had the seeds for the lemon. They needed to get them out to the farmers and blah, blah, blah. And that's how that whole story was created." And whether the word lemon, because what they did with every story, they just changed what the object was. So like you're saying, it's like a lot of times smoke and mirrors, right? Distract from this and talk about that. So that's why I tell everyone, because some people use that as the crutch or the excuse of, that's why I'm going to give up on vegetables because I don't know if they're good or not. Or, that's why I'm not going to drink water because, I heard too much water will kill me, So I'm like, well, don't worry about what I'm saying or anyone else is saying. Just go within, go to your intuition. What does make you feel good when you do it? Like if you take a brisk morning walk, do you feel better or worse? Most people feel better. So would that benefit you or hurt you? Don't worry about what, anyone told you, whether it has to be 20 minutes or high intensity or low, because right, a lot of crazy information out there and people just sometimes gives up, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we have 4 minutes left, Bert. So I do want to ask you a question about super circulation. Okay. So I want you
Okay.
to know I had one radio show listener. He was very skeptical, okay, about supplements in general. He had never even taken, not even a multi in his 80 years. He took super circulation and he did do what you suggested on the few of the shows, as well as my husband suggested, increasing and because he was working with neuropathy and the numbness in his feet, and he heard you say one client did 8. So that number was in his head. He does have the feeling back again. He's doing cartwheels, feeling incredible. So the question is, does he start backing down slowly now? Or like, does he do 7 for a while, then 6, then 5? And I realized we never discussed that after. So when someone feels better again, they feel their feet, they're not having those pins and needles, where do they go from there?
I don't know, because what happens is that good feeling and the circulation getting to the feet so you can feel them again, all of that lasts for quite a long time, even if you stop taking it completely. But then it comes back and you have to start all over. So I would say yes, to find a quantity that you want to do continuously. Now that might only be 2 a day or 1 a day. I mean, I don't know what you would back down to, but if a person stops it completely, they can always start it up again when the symptoms come back. It's kind of sad, but I've done that so many times in my life, even just in the past 5 or 6 years. I'm just feeling like everything is great, and then realized I've stopped taking something. I was up to doing 8 of the super circulation, and then I was dosed and muscle tested it and found out, oh no, you can put that on hold for a while. But the problem is that I didn't retest and found out it'd been 8 or 9, 10 months. Now I'm back up to doing, I think I'm up to 6 a day in the super circulation, but that was after taking quite a long break. So how do you do that? You're going to have to find out if somebody can help muscle test that person. Then they're using something that is not woo-woo, and it's not unscientific. We're talking, I think we mentioned this before, it's called applied kinesiology, and it's a 4-year college degree at almost every university now in the United States. And they now have companies that are hiring applied kinesiology people because they understand basically how to read the human body and even to verify whether something is true or false, because right now it's getting really difficult in the world to determine whether something you hear is false or true. But right. Applied kinesiology can help you break that deadlock where you can't figure out what's going on.
Yes, and like you said, depending on where the person is, there are those biofeedback machines and scanners that will help you decipher if muscle testing and kinesiology isn't available. The machines can do the work for you. So I do use those as well as in the Wellness Center. So Burt, I always appreciate your information. It was incredible. So this is Burt Goulding Jr. with Positive Power Nutrition. We talked about a lot of cool stuff today, but you can catch all the episodes on YouTube where Burt discusses super silica, cell power, super circulation. Oh my gosh, let's go on and on. Burt, I'll see you next month. Thank you. All right, bye. All right, everyone, have an awesome week.
You've been listening to Joanne's World of Nutrition with clinical nutritionist Burt Goulding Jr. on the show. Hosted by Joanne Seeger and brought to you by Joanne's Nutrition World in downtown Fort Pierce, US 1 at Orange Avenue, and the Crass Square right across the street from Fort Pierce City Hall. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world on Google Home, Alexa, and the TuneIn app on your smartphone.